1 month ago, 10 armed police officers arrived at a man's property in Porpunka, Victoria. They were there to execute a search warrant for allegations. Unproven allegations. 2 of those officers died. A third was seriously wounded, and the man they came for, Dezi Freeman, disappeared into the Victorian Alps. Now, Victoria Police has just admitted something that raises serious questions about everything that happened that day. And everything that's happened since. Let me start with the facts. Not the police narrative, not the media spin, just what we can actually verify. On August 26th, Victoria Police sent 10 officers to Dezi Freeman's property in Porpunka. Freeman lived there. It was his home. His land, the stated reason? A search warrant related to what police described as historical allegations, not charges, not a conviction. Allegations. What happened next is undisputed. 2 officers were killed, Senior Constable Vadim Dewart and Detective Leading Senior Constable Neil Thompson. A third officer was seriously wounded and airlifted to hospital. His name has never been released publicly. Freeman left his property and entered the surrounding bushland. Victoria Police's response was massive. Almost 500 officers deployed. Australian Defence Force brought in, helicopters, drones, thermal imaging. The entire apparatus of the state mobilised to find one man. That was over a month ago. Now Victoria's Chief Commissioner Mike Bush has provided an update. And what he's admitted tells us more about the state of this investigation than Victoria Police probably wanted to reveal. Let me give you Commissioner Bush's exact words from his statement on National Police Remembrance Day. He confirmed that 200 officers are still actively searching for Freeman. That's down from the initial 500, but still a massive ongoing operation. He stated that police have physically searched over 40 square kilometres of terrain, both on foot and by air. He revealed that the public has provided 1,400 pieces of information to Victoria Police, and then he said this, exact quote, "None of them have led to any positive leads. 1,400 tips from members of the public. Not one has produced a useful lead." Commissioner Bush also admitted that police are now, quote, "revisiting things we've already searched to make sure we haven't missed anything. They're going back over the same ground, researching areas they've already covered." When reporters asked if police believe Freeman was still in the area, Commissioner Bush used vague language. He said there are, quote, "a number of likelihoods," and that police have followed leads in other locations. But he wouldn't provide specifics. Finally, Commissioner Bush stated, "This has really damaged our police service and the community. We are determined to bring this matter to a conclusion. We will not give up until we find that person." Those are the facts as stated by Victoria's top police officer. Now let me tell you what he didn't say. Here's what Victoria Police hasn't addressed. The questions that matter. Question 1. Why were 10 armed officers necessary for unproven allegations? Let's be very clear about what we're talking about. Police described these as historical allegations of child sex offences, but they were allegations. There had been no charges filed, no trial, no conviction. In this country, people are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So why did serving a search warrant require 10 armed police officers showing up at someone's property? Question 2. If the situation was considered high risk enough to send 10 officers, why wasn't Victoria Police's Special Operations Group involved? The Special Operations Group exists specifically for high-risk operations. They're trained for exactly these situations. Yet according to reports, none of them were present on August 26th, just 10 regular officers. Going to a rural property to serve a warrant on a man who, according to police and media descriptions, didn't trust government authority. If they believed resistance was likely, why wasn't proper tactical support arranged? Question 3. What actually happened in those first moments? 2 officers died. A third was seriously wounded. Those are facts. But what was the sequence of events? Who did what? What was said? How did the confrontation begin? Victoria Police has released almost nothing about what actually occurred. We don't know the timeline. We don't know who fired first. We don't know if commands were given, if there was an attempt at negotiation, if anything was done to de-escalate. All we know is the result: 2 dead officers, 1 wounded, and Freeman leaving his property on foot. Question 4. Were the original allegations legitimate? I'm not making a claim either way. I'm saying we don't know. They were allegations, not proven facts. And now, because Freeman isn't in custody, we may never know. But it's worth asking, what were these allegations based on? Who made them? When? And why did they result in 10 armed officers at Freeman's door? Question 5. How did one man on foot evade 10 police officers who were already on his property? Think about the logistics. 10 officers were on site. Freeman left on foot into bushland. Yet before backup could arrive, before a perimeter could be established, he was gone. If this operation was properly planned, how does that happen? These aren't rhetorical questions. These are questions that Victorian taxpayers deserve answers to. Now let me add some context that's been reported about that day. According to news reports, 10 police officers arrived at Freeman's property to execute the search warrant. Police and media have described Freeman as someone who rejected government authority. Whether that's accurate or just the label authorities applied to him, we don't know. What we do know from reports is that Freeman had previously owned firearms and had lost his gun license. Media described him as someone who was prepared for conflict with authorities. Again, those are descriptions from police and media, not confirmed facts from Freeman himself. But if Victoria Police believed those things to be true, if they thought Freeman was armed, prepared, and hostile to police authority, then the operational planning on August 26th becomes even more questionable. You don't send regular officers into a situation you believe is high risk. You send specialists. You have negotiators ready. You plan for contingencies. The fact that 2 officers died and a 3rd was seriously wounded suggests that either Victoria Police massively underestimated the risk, or they knew the risk and sent officers in anyway without proper support. Either way, that's a failure of planning and command. Now let's look at what Commissioner Bush's update actually tells us. 1 month of intensive searching, 200 officers still deployed, 40 square kilometres physically covered, 1,400 tips from the public investigated, millions in taxpayer money spent. Result: nothing. According to Victoria Police's own Chief Commissioner, not one of those 1,400 tips has produced a useful lead. They're now researching areas they've already covered. That's not standard procedure. That's what you do when you have no other options. When you're out of leads and out of ideas. Commissioner Bush talked about pursuing a number of likelihoods and following leads in other locations. That's bureaucratic language for we don't know where he is. And here's what seems most likely. Freeman was never in their search area. Consider the situation. He lived on that property. He knew the surrounding land. If reports are accurate that he was prepared for conflict with authorities, would he really just hide in the nearby bush, hoping 500 police officers wouldn't find him? Or would he have had an exit plan prepared long before August 26th? While Victoria Police was deploying 500 officers, setting up roadblocks, and flying helicopters over the Victorian Alps, Freeman could have been anywhere. The massive show of force wasn't an effective search strategy. It was theater. It was about being seen to do something. About demonstrating state power, about justifying what happened on August 26th, and 1 month later, it's clear it didn't work. Commissioner Bush is now admitting publicly that this investigation has produced no results despite extraordinary resources. That police are researching the same ground, that they're following vague likelihoods because they don't have concrete leads. 2 officers are dead. A 3rd was seriously wounded. The state has spent millions. And Victoria Police is no closer to finding Dezi Freeman than they were on August 27th. This situation reminds me of another Australian manhunt. Malcolm Naden in New South Wales. Naden evaded Nestallers police for 7 years. 7 years of searching rugged bushland. Thousands of officer hours. Massive resources committed. He was finally caught in 2012, but only after Nestallers police admitted their initial strategy wasn't working and completely changed their approach. They brought in specialist trackers, They adapted their tactics. The key difference between that case and this one: NW police eventually recognized they needed to change course. Based on Commissioner Bush's statements, Victoria Police is still using the same approach they've been using since August 27th, searching and researching the same areas, following tips that lead nowhere, maintaining 200 officers in a search zone that's produced no results. Commissioner Bush says they're determined and won't give up. That sounds admirable, but determination without adaptation isn't strategy. It's stubbornness, and it's Victorian taxpayers who are paying for that stubbornness. 200 officers still in the field, helicopters still flying, resources still being committed to a search that has, by the Chief Commissioner's own admission, produced 0 useful leads in over a month. Commissioner Bush said this case has really damaged Victoria Police. And he's right, but not for the reason he probably meant. Yes, 2 officers are dead. That's a tragedy. And a 3rd officer was seriously wounded. That cannot be minimized, but what's damaged Victoria Police's credibility isn't just what happened on August 26th, it's everything that's happened since. It's the admission that 400 public tips have led nowhere. That's not the public's failure. That's an investigative failure. It's the admission that police are researching areas they've already searched. That suggests either the initial searches were inadequate or they're completely out of ideas. It's the vague language about a number of likelihoods and leads in other locations without any specifics. That's not transparency. That's deflection. And most fundamentally, it's the questions Victoria Police still won't answer about August 26th itself. Why were 10 officers sent for unproven allegations? Why wasn't tactical support involved if the risk was known? What actually happened in those first moments? How did Freeman leave the property before a perimeter could be established? These questions matter, not just for understanding this case, but for understanding how Victoria Police assesses risk, plans operations, and responds when things go wrong. Because if the same failures that led to August 26th are still present in Victoria Police's operational planning, then more officers could be put at risk in the future. So here's where we are. More than a month after August 26th, Dezi Freeman remains at large. 200 Victoria Police officers are still searching. 40 square kilometres have been physically covered. 1,400 tips from the public have been investigated. A $1 million reward has been offered. And according to Chief Commissioner Mike Bush himself, none of it has produced a single useful lead. Police are researching the same areas. They're pursuing what the Commissioner vaguely described as a number of likelihoods. They're maintaining that they won't give up, but they're not explaining why their strategy hasn't changed, despite producing no results. They're not answering questions about the original operation. They're not being transparent about what went wrong or what they're doing differently now. 2 officers died on August 26th for reasons Victoria Police still hasn't fully explained. A 3rd was seriously wounded, and the man they came for has been free for over a month, despite the largest manhunt Victoria has seen in years. That's not a success story. That's a failure at multiple levels. And until Victoria Police is willing to answer the hard questions about operational planning, risk assessment, and why this search has produced nothing, that failure will continue. What do you think? Was the operation on August 26th justified? Has the search been conducted effectively? And where do you think Dezi Freeman actually is? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't seen my previous coverage of this case, check the links in the description. Subscribe for updates. Because based on Commissioner Bush's admission that they have no useful leads, this story isn't ending anytime soon.